And we are live once again. And hello and welcome to the Prince Magnum channel where hot rodding and romance do coexist. I'm your host, Prince Magnum, and welcome to a live stream of Off the Chain. Now, if you're not familiar with Off the Chain, that's where we throw caution to the wind and just talk about the things that make life enjoyable, period. So there's no hate here. It's just a matter of having fun. And that's exactly what we're going to do. First things first, all right? Um, right out of the gate, a lot of you have probably seen a lot of videos that have been coming up for the past several months of me on stage singing karaoke and having a good time. Was involved in a couple of contests, and we just, one of my many things that I enjoy and enjoy a great deal of is music. I love music. Music has gotten me through a lot of tough times. Uh, Let me say right now, living the life that I had to live when I was, through my teen years, it was a rough upbringing. It was a tough time, and I was lucky to get through it all. But it was a lot of times it was music that got me through the moments. It was like that. That being said, and we've talked about this on the channel, that when I was like 14, I would daydream, because I would have this daydream that I'd have my dual cassette stereo up there and would be listening to music, and out in front of me was this giant audience, and they were all there to listen to me sing, and that got me through a lot of bad moments. So music is an important aspect in my life. That being said, okay, uh, we've all heard the story of how the story of how back in high school I got nicknamed Dr. Love. I don't like talking about that. It's just one of those things. It's like, can we just let it go? Can we let it go? Some people won't. It was in high school, guys. It was one of those things. But we've already talked about that story. Um, this is mainly about quite possibly one of the best karaoke DJs I have ever met, okay? And we'll get to that in a second. But before we get into why I think this person, and I'm going to give it away here just shortly. Um, when we talk about, the best karaoke DJs I've ever run into, um, that doesn't surprise me, Bert. Before we get into that whole thing, who the best karaoke DJ that I've ever had the opportunity to do anything with, um, let me give you all a little backstory. During my time, I was still in nursing. I was like 24, and at this time, I still owned Old Gold, my 1977. Uh, Easy killer. I still own my 1977 Oldsmobile Delta 88 Royale. And my dear close friend, we're still friends. Every once in a while, he'll poke his head in here on the Prince Magnum channel. How you doing, mercenary? If you do see this. Um, he heard the story of calling Dr. Love from my high school days. He basically took my car over to get a soda. He wanted to drive Old Gold, so I let him take the car over, and and he comes back, and he hands me back my keys, and I was going back to my med card, and he's like, "So what's your rush there, Doctor Love?" And I ended up having to tell him the whole story, and long story short. About 3 months after I got sober, I got hounded to go on a karaoke stage and sing. So it was my first time on stage, and ironically enough, it was in a bar 3 months after I got sober. So that's the irony of that. So I didn't really discover singing karaoke until after I got sober. I did one song, and for those who live in St. Francis County might remember the place. It was Wild River Saloon, which is out there on 221, just before you get it. I guess you would kind of say it's in Delasue, just before you would after the Columbia exit McDonald's, or the 221 exit McDonald's, or to all of us, Farmington to McDonald's, just before you would get to Doe Run. I guess that would be considered Dulce. And maybe someone else can fill me in on that later. But anyhow, and that was under a guy named Gino. And as a matter of fact, Gino has been in a few of my earlier karaoke videos, if you want to go that far back, because the Prince Magnum channel has been really on its push for about 4 years now. Um, so when you go back in time to the days, so we'll talk about that more as the video progresses. So the first time I ever sang was under Gino, and there's a lot of people in the area who still remember Gino. Gino's he's a good guy. I mean, he has his quirks, but hey, who doesn't? But when it came to his karaoke shows, well, we'll talk more about that. So 3 months sober, I did it. It was great. Did one song. It was Beth by Kiss, and dance floor filled up. It was great. It was a good time. Well, then from there, it turned into where I did. I was about 9 months sober, and I did it again. I got on stage and sang karaoke. You know, um, I did Beth again. It was my buddy Mercenary that talked me into doing it again. And he hounded and hounded me to do Calling Dr. Love. Long story short, I did it. And it kind of opened the floodgates. And see, around that time, a lot of people did like certain 80s rock songs, but most of it was country. And and I don't want to take away from anyone who sang back then. And I don't want to do that. But at that time, it was almost like about every other person had to do Hank Williams Jr.'s song, "Family Tradition," which that was about the bulk of, you know, all of it. It just wasn't. There was, I mean, it was mostly a lot of country music, and you might hear some Toby Keith, things like that. But it was just kind of blah, you know. It was just, it was always the same stuff, and it wasn't. You didn't see anybody really expand. Again, I'm not knocking anybody. I'm not putting anybody down. But that was just kind of the theme back then. So here I was going up on stage doing Kiss, and it got a big crowd response um, because it was different. And at that time, Gino, he was really focused on the country music thing. Of course, that was kind of what everybody did. So I was really kind of that unusual cog in the whole thing. And so I didn't get, there was times I could have gotten more stage time, but I didn't, and there was a lot of that going around back then. It was almost like the rock and roll thing was kind of discouraged. So that was, again, I'm not putting down Gino. Gino's a good guy. That was just kind of how he had to run things because that's kind of what everyone was used to. So I would guess you would almost say he was a product of what everybody was used to. Again, I'm not putting him down. Gino's a good guy, and I would never say anything bad about him because he was the first karaoke DJ I ever came into contact. But that's not to say he was the best. That being said, things kind of changed, and I actually got to I moved to Ironton for a little while, and I sang under a different karaoke DJ, and I absolutely hated it. I did it one time, and it was like, dude, I mean, he didn't have much of a library. His audio was horrible, and I'll tell you right now, um, you know, even though the audio on this iPhone is just absolutely wretched, live it sounds good, but it takes a good karaoke DJ to not only play the music and play it well for the karaoke singer, but to get the microphone adjusted right. I mean, to get it. Let me say, some days I'm not always at my best, and it takes a very good karaoke DJ to carry me. So I'm going to say that right now. And this guy couldn't, he was a horrible karaoke DJ. He was absolutely one of the worst. So I've never sang for him ever again. I did sing for Gino again for a little while, and then I went over to I tried another place out, and this was when Buffalo Wild Wings started doing their karaoke. I was asked to come out there and give it a try. I hated it. That guy out there had absolutely one of the worst attitudes I have ever seen. Um, because Kiss is kind of a controlled scream style rock and roll. Yes, there is some technical stuff. Even today, the most technical song that I do, most technically difficult song that I do, is "I Was Made for Loving You" by Kiss. It is the hardest song that I can do. Not to say that it's my favorite though, but it is the hardest song that I do. Uh, that being said, this guy was, he was a jerk. So I only sang for him a couple of times. And I did try him again at a later date, but we'll talk about that again as the video progresses. Um, Now, all of that being said, all of that being said, um, when my ex, Lady Katrina, and I split up, and I became, was strictly doing the single dad thing and everything, and then the bad stuff happened. I was out of karaoke for a long, long, long time. And then I heard about karaoke, Princess Phase 21, and I heard about karaoke being done over at the Sandbar in Washington. Now I went over there, and at first I was kind of let down, but then when I talked to the owner and proprietor of the Sandbar, and discussed some things that I noticed about his karaoke show from his DJ, some changes were made, and it got better uh, because by this time I already knew what a karaoke show should be like, and it turned out really good. And I like that guy. I hope he's still I don't know. I haven't been to the Sandbar in forever, but he really did a good show. At the same time, there was also one done over at the bar in uh, at a bar that was in a almost similar to our family fun center, but they had a big bowling alley and just neat things like that. They had a small bar and they had karaoke once a week over there, and they had a really good guy over there. And it was the only, as a matter of fact, if you go back to some of my earlier, we're talking real early Prince Magnum karaoke videos on this channel, you'll actually see some of the earlier footage, and if I remember correctly, off the top of my head, it was the only black karaoke DJ I ever got to work with, and he was good. Again, he wasn't the best that I ever worked with, but he was dang good. Because inside that little bar, the acoustics were just wretched, and he still made me sound good. Um, you know, Again, I'm going to say this right now. Some people you can't help. I mean, and I don't. Unfortunately, there's no nice way to say it. Some people are just not that great as singers, but I still respect them because they have the courage to go up on stage. Whether they had to get some liquid courage in them first to get up on stage, they still had the courage to go up there, regardless. Um, Now, again, bear in mind, all of this is done in bars, and I'm doing this in sobriety. So I don't know if that makes me even more courageous. It might even make me even a little stupid for doing it, but it's my thing. Okay, I go there, I drink soda, and that sort of thing. And most people don't care because I'm there having a good time, and that's what a bar is for: have going and having a good time, even though there's a lot of drinking involved. That's what they sell to help people have a good time, but I could do it without it, and they don't mind that. And I'm still buying something, so it works out. So some of that earlier footage was uh, from that particular place. I never got any from the Sandbar, but the guy who at first he started off bad, but then he got really good. So he's the most improved karaoke DJ I have ever had the opportunity to work with, and I hope he's still out at the Sandbar. Mm. Now, that being said, When Princess Faye and I moved here to St. Francis County, right here in lovely Bonne Terre, um, I knew Gino had his own place, and it was Wild Horse Saloon. Uh, and it was a nice place, and I started singing for Gino again, and was having a good time. It was a great time. In the process of this, we started really pushing there for a little while the karaoke footage. Um, not sure where it was going to go, but content was changing on the channel at that time. We were still in our early days and thought we would try some new stuff, and it worked out. It got some views, and it may have even attracted a few more people. Now, all of that being said, okay, we're talking. This is, you know, under Gino. It's safe to say that the karaoke stuff started getting a little bit more of attention. Didn't get a whole lot, but a little bit more than it did before. Now, at this time, heard about other places that were doing karaoke, and my schedule kind of fluctuated a little bit back in those days, working at McDonald's and everything. So, as a matter of fact, in some of those old video in some of that old video footage, I actually went directly over right after work and was still in uniform up on stage singing karaoke. So if you look close enough, you'll see me in a McDonald's uniform. But anyhow, we heard about seeing karaoke at some other places, and that's when the Prince Magnum channel, Prince Magnum, met some of the DJs that worked for Party Pro. Um, and the first one that we met, nice guy. As a matter of fact, he also worked part time over at Burger King, right over in Farmington, which it was a good time. Working with as a karaoke singer and working with him, he did an amazing job. And of course, we put him, we bragged about him a few times on the channel, of course. But then I had my first couple of experiences with a particular DJ that really, kind of the last video that we did for a long time on the Prince Magnum channel when it came to karaoke was my version of Rock and Roll All Night, obviously another Kiss song. And the DJ, because he was over at Cousins in Farmington, another bar and grill. I think it was just a straight bar. I think it still is. Was none other than Brian, the DJ who works for Party Pro. He was the DJ that ran, and it was by far the best karaoke video to that point that was showed on the Prince Magnum channel. Now, irony would have it that it was the best, okay? And how I got in touch with Party Pro, obviously, was I started going out to, which I probably should go see those guys sometime. I was actually singing over at the VFW hall right over in, oh shoot, in Deloge. I was singing at the VFW hall over there. As a matter of fact, one night I was leaving and got pulled over by the Deloge Police Department, and they're like, "Have you been drinking?" I was like, "No, sir, I have not." I said, "What were you doing over there?" "I was singing karaoke. I'm actually, at that time I had X amount of years sober." Like, you, well, okay, that's a first, And they ran my driver's license, and they were like, they let me go, and it was really awesome. They were really nice about it. So nothing more was said about it. But, I was singing over there for a while, and that's how I got in touch with Party Pro, and then eventually ran into Brian, the DJ of Party Pro. Now, again, I tried a couple more times over there at Buffalo Wild Wings under that one karaoke DJ they had over there, and he had a nasty attitude. He was just a horrible, horrible person to work under. And last I heard, they don't do karaoke over there anymore. And thank God they got rid of that guy. Maybe they should consider Party Pro if they want to bring karaoke back in, because it was huge over there for a long time. But it started dying off, and a lot of it, I believe, was just the attitude of the guy who ran it. So, right out of the gate, right at this point, I want to say up front, wholeheartedly, um, every karaoke singer should what they should look for in a good solid karaoke DJ is number one, do they make them sound good? Okay, and again, I'm gonna say some days it's a struggle for me to sound good. I wish every day I got up and I was 110% every time, but it doesn't work that way. I can give only 110% of of how I'm feeling that day, and I think that's everybody in the world. I don't care who you are. That's not to say that I don't give the best performance I possibly can based on how I'm feeling that day, but I always give my best. But that being said, some days it's a struggle. Do I believe I'm talented enough to still sound good? Yes, but it still takes a good karaoke DJ to kind of bring you over the top of that. So, what I look for is a karaoke DJ that can make me sound good regardless of how I'm feeling that day. To go along with that, um, to go along with that, a good karaoke DJ also should have a good solid attitude because at some point they're going to have to talk during the whole show, and they got to know how to get through the rotations no matter how many people are on there, and be fair and include new singers as the night progresses and things like that. So it really takes to really make it truly fair and everything and still provide dance music and everything. It takes a really good one to make that show work. So, uh, when Gino shut down, uh, you know, when he shut down Wild Horse Saloon, it changed hands and it was called Afterglow for a little while. And I think maybe even briefly in somewhere in that time frame, it was called something else. And then the people who now own Lazarus Bar and Grill took it over. They reopened it, and it's a good place to be. The attitude is good. The people there are good. Shoot, there's even a local biker gang called the Statesman, and I think there's another one called 18 Wheel. They've been nothing but friendly to myself, Princess Faye, and just the fact that the Prince Magnum channel is there. Everyone, it's a good atmosphere. Which I would not say anything bad about anyone who treats us good. I don't care if they are in a biker gang. They've been everybody who goes there has been nothing but friendly to myself and Princess Faye. So they've been very accepting of the Prince Magnum channel. Even when we were doing the karaoke contest and everything, it was just a great time. And again, there was some issues here and there, but then those issues work themselves out, and that should go without saying. That all that being said, the man who really makes that karaoke show really pop over there at Lazarus Bar and Grill is the karaoke DJ that I like to call DJ Brian. And DJ Brian, or Brian the DJ, however you want to say it, I'm going to say it right now. I mean, there are some days that you might even see me in some of my videos where I step off, I have to take a drink of soda because my sinuses are acting up and my throat gets clogged up, so the song doesn't quite sound as good as it does, and things like that. He still makes me sound good, okay? And he's got a good attitude, and he's even given me some pointers as a karaoke singer that I didn't even know before, okay? That's also helped enhance his show at the same time. So I'm able to work with him. He's able to work with, and so let me say right now, in 2018, okay, any karaoke, any music video that I do where I'm on stage singing karaoke, okay, let me say right now, the camera equipment that I use to record that and then quickly just load it directly to YouTube, because my computer will not sync up with the Apple iPhone and things like that without special apps and just being a pain in the ass. So I have to load directly. There's no editing involved, anyways, because you get more of a, you get more bang for your buck that way because I can't edit out anything. I have to load it as is. So you guys get the best that I can offer. Let me say that the best I can offer is just because Brian the DJ of Party Pro makes it possible. He is the best karaoke DJ that I have ever worked with. So any music video here on the Prince Magnum channel, that you all may really, 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 really enjoy, the ones where I'm on stage singing Kiss, or ZZ Top, or Neil Diamond, or I'm trying something new, or even the ones where I'm serenading Princess Faye herself. Let me say right now that they are the best I can offer. And the only reason why they're the best I can offer is because Brian, the DJ of Party Pro, makes it possible because of the hard work that he does. And it's it's not too often I'm able to take time out and really give props to someone like that. Now, obviously, the fact that I'm not drinking, but I go into Laz's Bar and Grill, that everyone still accepts me that way. And so I do my best to put them over because they deserve it. I mean, I'm not there buying alcohol, okay? And they are a bar and grill. So the fact that they go out of their way and openly welcome the members of the Prince Magnum channel, knowing that obviously that goes without saying, and they let me video and do all this other stuff. They pretty well, let me come in and just do what and just be me. But beyond that, the real crux of what makes off the chain karaoke videos work is because um, Brian the DJ makes them work. And let me say, without question, everyone that goes up there, he does his best to make them sound good. And some of them, and I'm not putting anyone down, we're all there to have a good time. And if they have the courage to go up there, I still clap for them. I still, woo, that sort of thing. He makes them sound as good as they can. But some of them just, they're not the greatest singers ever. I appreciate they going up there and adding to the atmosphere that I'm there also to, I'm there to have a good time too and enjoy the music and watch people sing. But some of them, they're not the super greatest in the whole wide world. It's just, maybe it's the alcohol. Maybe they really are that good. Maybe they really are that good, but because maybe they're drinking so much that they're not that good anymore. So that being said, Brian the DJ does an amazing job making them still sound as good as they possibly can. And one of the things that he tells all of us, just be you. So going all the way back to my early days as a karaoke singer, we'll go, all the way back to when I was 3 months sober, which that was back in 2006 when I sang for Gino for the very first time. Brian is the best because he openly tells you, you do you. Um, it's a matter of opinion. I mean, I don't think I'm any better than anyone else, in all fairness. Um, it's one of those things. Again, I'm not putting anyone down, okay? And, it's safe to say, I believe that let me put it more like this. Everybody, whether they can carry a tune in a bucket or not, well, you know how it is. And again, it's also a matter of opinion, okay? And I'm just speaking from the heart, you know. I'm just speaking from the heart. So I don't want you to get it in your head that I'm not putting them down. They have the courage to go up there, and there are many who don't. So of course, I'm still going to clap for them because they had that courage, okay? And um, it's kind of like, we could debate our favorite singers and guitarists and all that thing. No, no, not at all. You're far from the truth. I wouldn't even say that, because even if I may not like it, even if I may not like it, you know, I still appreciate it. Music is still music. Even if I don't like a particular genre of music, even if I don't, enjoy, I still respect it. Okay. For example, I love the blues. I love the blues. Okay. But you may not like the blues. Exactly. Exactly. Supportive claps. You're right on par. Because, let's put it more like this. Going back to that first contest that I did earlier this year, let me say openly, okay? And I know how it sounded, and I do apologize. And I'm not putting anyone down. And sometimes it may sound like a certain way, but it's not, so just bear with me. Going back to that contest earlier this year, one of the things that, even if we may not, there were some of us, and even it happened to me, um, that we would go up and we would sing. I did a karaoke contest earlier this year to kind of support, to kind of boost the amount of people coming onto my channel, just more exposure, if you will. And there was a chance to win money, so of course everybody can use money nowadays. That's just the way it is. Uh, but I went on there and to do this contest, and of course that's when I got to know Brian the DJ a little bit more, and all that sort of thing. Um, During that contest, one of the things that all of us contestants really did is, even if we bombed a song, we still supported each other. As a matter of fact, when I was in the middle, when the semifinals was going on, was the best example, because I was in the semifinals for that contest. Um, which it was not easy to make it to the semifinals. There was a lot of tough competition. So right there should tell you, where I'm at on this. Um, Even when us contestants would bomb a song, because I did a couple of times, I kind of goofed up. We would still go up, high five and hugging each other. Did a great job, even though that contestant, or even myself, hey, what's up? Even when one of us contestants would bomb a song, we still went up and told each other that we did a good job, and it was like that. As a matter of fact, it's not uncommon to see karaoke singers in a contest bring their own entourage to cheer them on, to get that extra crowd bump. Well, in the middle of all of this, um, if you will, us contestants didn't have to bring our own entourage, um, because us contestants were cheering on the other contestants so much, even when we did bad. Okay, so you got to remember that mentality. And again, I'm also going to say this. I'm a firm believer that everybody can sing that one song and probably sing it better than the original artist. Okay, um, that's just the way it is. Okay, everybody can do that one song. It's just that when you throw alcohol into the mix and motor functions start to fail, that's when it starts going downhill. And that's what I'm actually referring to. Oh, well, I actually mentioned that earlier in the video, but for you, I will do it again. Um, this goes back a long ways, and now I'm going to have to tell the story of calling Dr. Love again. And I really hate this story now, because it's one that's followed me since high school. Um, More or less, after living through, oh, you're more than welcome. After living through a great deal of abuse through my teen years, which we have talked about that already. I had a love for music because it got me through. And while I was in the St. Anthony's Highland Adolescent Center, kind of recuperating, and was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, one of the things that all of us enjoyed doing is we would sing our favorite songs. And of course, I knew a lot of Kiss songs, so I was the one that was, different. And before I left, I had a book that talked about it. Well, I was in, it was my first days back to high school. I was back in my old school, Arcadia Valley, Missouri. I was in Arcadia Valley High School, and I ended up graduating from that high school back in 1997. Um, and um, when I was there, and that sort of thing, uh, I was showing the book and, that sort of thing. And someone actually brought up, you sing, because they read it in there that someone like, and on a dare, someone dared me to sing, and I ended up singing Calling Dr. Love in front of the high school cafeteria. Several people in there. It was very crowded. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. And that's kind of followed me ever since, and all the way up until I graduated high school, people called me Dr. Love. So, hey, Dr. Love. And I hated it. It was like, it was so stupid for me. I just hated it. Did my best my senior year to get as far away from that as possible. But and even after high school, it followed me for many years. Well, I graduated in 1997. Um, as a matter of fact, yesterday I just celebrated my 39th birthday. I was born August 7th, 1979. Um, you know, I'm getting to be an old dude, you know, and so I grew up. A lot of the music I listened to was a lot of stuff out of the '60s and '70s. I mean, some of it even goes on as far back as the 1950s. I love rock and roll of the 1950s. One of my all-time favorite rock and roll songs is "Rock Around the Clock" by Bill Haley and the Comets. Big fan of Bill Haley and the Comets. He did the song. They did the song "See You Later, Alligator." Uh, you know, uh, Thank you, thank you. Um, so all of that being said, the story of calling Dr. Love kind of followed me after graduation here and there. And a buddy of mine that I worked with in nursing goes by the nickname Mercenary. He told me this story once, and time has not been kind. And him and I first became friends back in 2002. Um, and we've been friends ever since. We've been the closest of friends. He actually watched me get sober, and I'm going to throw my cigar around a little bit. So he watched me get sober. So it tells you how far back we go. Because also yesterday I celebrated 12 and a half years of continuous sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, back when I was 24, 25 in that ballpark area, I still had a 1977 Oldsmobile Delta 88 Royale four-door that I drove around everywhere. Had been in my family since 1984, and I was the third generation of my family to drive that car. Which, by the way, four generations of my family rode in that car because I actually took my second daughter home from the hospital. Took her home. In that car. So it was one of those really awesome cars. And I've already done that story before. Um, and my buddy, Mercenary, he wanted to borrow my car one day to go over and pick up a soda. So he goes over, he picks up a soda, and someone recognized my car because I'd had it for many years. And he's like, "Hey, what's up, Dr. Love?" Wait a minute, you're not Dr. Love. And he's like, "Who is Dr. Love?" The guy who owns this car. He's like, he still owns this guy. Yeah, the same guy who's owned it for the all. He's, yeah, that's Dr. Love. And he gave my real name. He's like, how in the heck did he come up with the? And he told him the story. Well, my buddy Mercenary comes back to work and he hands back, we both still work nursing then. And he gives me the keys to my to my car, and I was going back to my medicine cart. He's like, "What's your hurry, Dr. Love?" And I turned around, "Where the hell did you hear that?" I ended up having to tell him the story. Well, a few years go by, and now I'm in sobriety, and I was 3 months sober, and he was starting to get into karaoke himself, and he was having a lot of fun doing it. And he's, he still drinks, and he has a good time when he does, and that sort of thing. And he was trying to talk me into doing it. By the way, we'd actually were doing kind of love songs for in the dining room at our nursing home for some of our residents, which you might find, we were doing love songs for them. So I was already kind of doing it already then. Um, Music has always been a major part of my life. Um, Now, all that being said, um, he talked me into doing it when I was 3 months sober, and that's kind of where it started. And I've done it off and on since I was 3 months sober. So I was 26 then. Yeah, I was 26 then. And so since 2006, I have been singing karaoke on a stage, you know, and off and on. And let me say again, the best, who this video is really about, now I've had to explain a bunch of things, uh, is about Brian, the DJ of Party Pro. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, and there's tons of karaoke singers who've been doing this for years, right? There's a bunch of them that have been doing this for years, and and we'll tell you, those of us who've done it for years, that it takes a good karaoke DJ to make us sound good. Some days, some days I sound absolutely horrible, and some days I'm dead on. You know, and real quick, again, I've talked. I guess I should really tell this story. Um, and it's kind of an emotional story for me, so just kind of bear with me. When you go back in time to when I was 14 and going through, it was really the height of the abuse that I was suffered. Actually, even further than my teen years. It went back probably all the way back to when I was actually as far back as I can remember. I went through major amounts of abuse. And lived through all that. So, but at the age of 14 was really the height of the worst of it, and it was physical, it was mental, it was horrible. It was horrible then. To this day, I have a hard time standing at the kitchen sink and doing regular dishes. And all that being said, what I would do is, I'm 14 years old. I'm going through this horrible stuff. I don't know the next time that I'm going to have to be in a fist fight with my mom's live-in boyfriend or have to endure her slapping me around and things like that. So I would, to kind of curtail some of that stress, I would do a little bit of daydreaming. And what I would do, and it was almost, and I know this might sound silly to some, but you have to remember the time frame. What I would do is I had this old dual cassette, just tape deck. I do have kids. I have a total of 5 kids that I know of. Remember, there was a lot of alcohol in my 20s. And that's kind of a long story why they're not here and everything like that. And some of it's my fault, and some of it isn't. That sort of thing. But that's another story for another time, and we'll get into that a little bit more, which more and more has been talked about here on the channel. Let me stick to the task at hand for the moment. Um, I'll answer that question. I'd like to do that in another video. Definitely in your face. It definitely falls under that. Um, let's just say I drank my first two. I drank my first two away. But anyhow, I'm 14 years old, and I'm going through the abuse and everything, and just it was a really horrible time. Uh, as a matter of fact, again, because of all the abuse that I went through, that's why I have PTSD today. Okay, and there are times, and I'll say this with some care. That's why sometimes when I'm trying to convey a certain message. This is why the gentleman had to get me to clarify if I'm trying to make myself sound better than others. Uh, this is why sometimes certain things come out the way that they do. I know what I'm trying to say deep down, but people will misunderstand me because of the PTSD, because at times it does put me in a social awkward position. So, a little side note there. So do excuse me on that. I do my best. I think I do pretty good, considering that situation. Um, that being said, I was 14, and what I would do is I would do this daydream, and uh, being a big Kiss fan in the '90s, which was kind of an unusual thing, kind of. Where I, you know, no, I didn't actually. Well, again, we'll talk about this in another video. My first two children, my first two children, they got to see me in the bottom of my cups. Okay, and it's a painful subject for me to talk about. Okay, um, that's just it's an unfortunate side effect of alcoholism. Alcoholism not only takes the person who's addicted hostage, but then the person who's addicted to the alcohol ends up taking everybody else hostage. And that's just kind of how it is. Um, so, in that regard, that's just kind of, it's an unfortunate thing. And I openly admit that, okay? Um, let's just say that my guilt, um, sometimes with my guilt, it's hard to stay sober. But anyhow, I keep trying to get the story out. 14 years old, and I'm going through the abuse. And what I would do is I would put in Kiss music, and I would listen to the tape deck, and I would sing along with the songs as best I could. And doing, and I was in choir and everything. So I actually was in choir, and I was actually due to eventually, by my senior year of high school, had things went differently. I was expected to be in a special mixed choir group in Union High School where you could get a scholarship to go to any college in the state of Missouri and be a part of their choir and get your education that way. So, little side note there for anyone who, so I was good enough to do that. Well, it was a particularly off day, and I didn't know it, but my mom was listening to me sing along. And what I would do is I would sing, I had my tape deck, and I would sing these songs, and what I would do is I would picture all these people out there listening to me sing, and it was kind of my way to escape what I was going through at that time. Mom kind of overhears me, and she started, she really put me down, and it just totally broke my heart. I couldn't believe that my own mother would be that hateful. um and for the record, during this time I even heard my mother say some very hateful things about me to my grandmother. I overheard that conversation, that old saying that you never hear anything nice when you're eavesdropping. you know and that day was very true. I was happened to go down. I was coming from my uncle's room, was going downstairs, and was listening to my mom and grandma. So that was just some of the things that I had to go through. Um, and after she was done putting me down, I said to myself, I was gonna, even if I was never discovered, which I've never been discovered, um, that I was going to be the best rock and roll singer that I could ever be, possibly be. And my mother, I was going to prove her wrong. She'd never have the final say so in that. Um, yeah. Um, and for the record, I do my best up on stage, and today, uh, people love what I do, and I have a good time doing it. I'm not getting paid. I'm having a good time. And I'm going to tell you right now, at all the karaoke DJs that I have had the opportunity to work with, Brian the DJ is probably the best I've ever worked with, who this video is really about. Um, you know, if you will, just imagine this for a second, okay? After all the abuse that I went through, and then my alcoholism, having to live with PTSD, and even having a stroke back in 2011. That's why I'm not nursing anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't. I couldn't keep going. Um, you know what I'm gonna do for you? I'll tell you what. I might even. Yeah, yeah. You can. I'll tell you what. Let me say a couple more things. Really talking about who this video is really about, and and I'll tell you what. You all can kind of shoot some questions at me within reason, obviously, because I've kind of beat myself up a little bit too in this video. Um, you know, a lot of this is still, after all I've lived through, it's still pretty pain. There's still some painful subjects that I've had to live through, and I can only take so much, guys. But uh, you know, after all that I've had to kind of live through, you know, uh, Brian the DJ, or DJ Brian as I sometimes call him, you know, he makes it possible for me to kind of, I do the best I can when I'm up on stage, and it's not just me standing up there and I really get into the music. And he says, "Do you?" And he does his best to make us all sound good, and make the show really work. And any video that you see here on the Prince Magnum channel, like it, love it, or hate it, um, you know, he does his best to make me sound good. And I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart that he does that. It means the world to me because every time I'm up on that stage, that karaoke stage, no matter how far back you go to when I first did it to today, let me say, that he does an amazing, he lets me get a little piece of that something that my mom kind of took away from me when I was 14. He lets me get a little bit of that something back, you know. you know, thank you. And so he lets me get a little bit of that back, and I appreciate it. So that's what this video is really about. And for the record, I'm going to say, when you're an alcoholic, and you've had to live the life of an alcoholic and everything that led into alcoholism, and however you want to look at it, um, you know, um, it's always appreciated when you get into recovery and people kind of help you along the way, kind of get a little bit of that life back. The life that you could enjoy. Or adding to that life. So who this video is really about, Brian the DJ. I want to, if you see this, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart that you do so much for me, Prince Magnum, to get a little bit of that something back that was taken away from me so many years ago. Because again, I'm going to say, some days I don't sound good, but you make me sound amazing no matter what. So thank you for doing that. Now, I know there's a lot of people chomping at the bit, got some questions, and I will do my very best to answer them. Let's be reasonable here, okay? I've kind of beat myself up a little bit in this video, and some of the questions have been a little hard to answer because they are so painful. So go ahead and ask away. All right. Uh, some of those things, again, while people are forming their questions, typing them out, whatever. Again, Brian's an amazing guy, and I'll tell y'all right now, if you ever have the opportunity to, I have never tried psychedelics. As an alcoholic, I'm going to say I have tried, there for about a month. I have got stuck on meth in my real early days of alcoholism, but that was about a month. And in my alcoholic days, I tried pot maybe a total of 7 times. None of it really, honestly, none of it I really liked. I mean, I didn't like any of it, other than the bottle. The bottle was always, back then, it was always my friend. And then when it was failing me, I couldn't understand. Um, you know, I hit that wall really hard. And I'm grateful for my sobriety today. Again, 12 and a half years without a drink is no joke, you know? It is. Alcohol is an extremely powerful substance. It today it can power vehicles. It could always power vehicles. As a matter of fact, with an adjustment screw and retarding the spark advance in Project Spirit, and maybe making a few modifications to her coolant system, she could run off of alcohol. It's been known to remove stains from tables. It's been known to remove the entire table. It's been known to remove bankrolls, families, and alcohols of this. Because even though I'm in recovery, I will openly say that I don't put down anyone who does drink alcohol. Uh, as a matter of fact, Alcoholics Anonymous, in the textbook self-titled Alcoholics Anonymous to all of us in recovery, we refer to it as the big book. um, Let me say that in that book, it actually refers to alcohol as a social lubricant. It creates an atmosphere of it can create a social atmosphere, but then at times it lowers inhibitions and makes people act ridiculous and silly. So that is one of those things. For the record, in some parts of the world, alcohol is still used as an anesthetic. A very bad one, but it is an anesthetic. And it has been known to treat wounds. That's why you can still get, you can still buy rubbing alcohol, and it's great for, that's an interesting question. It depends. It depends on it depends on how you want to look at it. Okay. If you go by the studies that people are talking about today, on paper, marijuana isn't as bad as alcohol. However, there's a study that's being suppressed that came out in 1995. There's a study that I read at the age of 15 that's being suppressed today, that no one talks about what marijuana side effects are. And when you read that, it's actually more harmful than marijuana. Um, but the lasting effects of the side effects of alcohol, with prolonged use, don't go away as quickly as the ones with marijuana. So it depends on how you want to look at it. And I will be honest with you, I'm a big advocate of medical marijuana, but as far as its use as um, for recreational purposes, no, I'm not a big. We have enough problems with alcohol. We don't need to be adding another problem too. Let's just say it this way: there's a slogan that we have, and there's a thing that goes around in AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is for the people who want it, not for the people who need it. Because here, even just in St. Francis County, which is not a very big populated area, it's kind of there's a lot of backwoods stuff. We have a lot of redneck types down here. Um, that being said, if everyone in St. Francis County came to AA who needed it, we would need Bush Stadium to host our meetings. So if that's any indication for that, and I will also say this for in AA, we also talk about the fact that there are some people who, because they don't want to do the steps, they don't want to meet those demons that cause them to drink, to deal with the head full of bad wiring. They'll say, "Well, I'm sober because I don't drink," and then come to find out they're smoking pot. So they're not living sober, okay? They're not even close to sober. So because of that, I'm not a big fan of marijuana other than for medical purposes, which now there are recent studies that say that it could help with PTSD, but I won't do it unless a doctor prescribes it. But I have found out how to live with PTSD in sobriety because of Alcoholics Anonymous and members of Alcoholics Anonymous who had to live with PTSD because they themselves were Vietnam veterans. So I found an alternate solution, you know, to medicine. So um, I hope that answers your question. I'm just, I'm again, I'm not a big fan of just recreational use marijuana. I'm a big fan, though, of using marijuana for medical purposes. We know that it could help with glaucoma. We know that there are certain, uh, anxiety medications that um, are um, that the side effects of marijuana are not as that they're not as harsh as say taking something like Xanax or Ativan or uh, or things like that. We know that even though they're here in Missouri, some people are using it illegally for this. It can help with ADHD. We know with cancer patients. I have actually seen uh, THC pills. This was in my last years of nursing. I actually seen what the THC pills could do with Alzheimer's and dementia. Most of those people um, don't remember the last time that they ate, and you would go up and say, "Well, it's time for supper." They're like, "Well, I just ate." They don't remember that they ate just several hours ago. To them, they just ate. Um, their sense of time is no longer there. Um, so by giving them the THC pills, they developed an appetite without the euphoria, and it didn't interact with other medications that they were already taking. So the THC pills did fantastic as far as helping their appetite so they could have some sort of quality of life. Obviously, there's no cure at this point for Alzheimer's and dementia, which, by the way, dementia is just a state of mind. It's a state of confusion with the mind. This is something I actually took special classes at the age of 24, specializing in Alzheimer's and dementia. And dementia is just an interesting thing because it's not an actual disease. It's just a state of mind, a state of confusion that comes with Alzheimer's or maybe a stroke or Parkinson's. Parkinson's is one that doesn't come up very often. Something to that degree. And hi, honey. Uh, Princess Faye just got home from work. Uh, so to answer, so I actually got to see to some degree, uh, if you will, the THC pills working with those particular patients. Or in my case, there were residents because there's actually a difference, and I might actually have to talk about medical terminology at some point in time, explaining that because my field of expertise in nursing was dealing with Alzheimer's, dementia, and I was a certified medication technician, so I handed out medication. So the ongoing joke with that is I was a legal drug dealer. So good question, good question. Got any others?
I got one.
Well,
What's going on?
well, I started telling, talking about Brian the DJ, and how awesome he really is, and then a few people did have some questions that they wanted to throw at me, and they threw. So I wanted to answer a few of those questions before we came to a close, and do my best with that. Um, so does anybody else got anything? If not, we'll go ahead and again, this really is about uh, party pros. Quite possibly, I don't know any of their other DJs anymore. Some of them have probably changed, but Brian the DJ is by far the best karaoke DJ that I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And even though I had to do some clarifications in here and that sort of thing, uh, again, he does an amazing job making sure that I sound good, even when I'm not at my best. you know, I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart because the Prince Magnum channel does get good quality videos when we're able to upload, and the phone isn't throwing us a fit. Which I got a couple more from yesterday that I still have to upload. A version of "Give Me All Your Lovin'" by ZZ Top, and just really awesome songs. I love music. All right. If nobody else has anything, we're going to go ahead and start bringing this to a screeching halt. Um, Glad I could answer. And we're gonna have to do this in a live stream soon. Um, so, all right. Now, all of that being said, um, be sure to check out my Patreon account. If you're able to donate, please do. If you want to become a long-term, donator, please by all means. I won't tell you no. Patreon does have a minimum of $1 a month. If you do that, I think it's a $1 minimum on donations, regardless, if I remember correctly. So be sure to donate if you can. All proceeds will go to improving Project Spirit's front suspension. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and on Facebook. There is no such thing as Twitter face, so you don't have to follow me there. Um, Real quick, I will again be out at Laz's Bar and Grill tomorrow night on stage singing karaoke for, with my good buddy, Brian the DJ, or DJ Brian, singing, singing whatever it is that comes across my crazy little mind. Um, you know, and we're just going to have a good time. On top of that, so if you're in the area, be sure to come out and hang out with us at Laz's Bar and Grill, which is over in Leadington, Missouri, on the outer road, just as you're coming away from Mineral Area College. So be sure to hang out with us. Also, the Prince Magnum channel will be in Cadet, Missouri at a suicide prevention and awareness benefit. It's going to be at the drive-in movie theater just off of, I believe, Highway 21, where we will be there, obviously supporting that cause. We're going to do our very best to show our support because suicide prevention is something that I don't think enough people talk about, and we need to do more and more as we possibly can to help people to find the zest of life that I have had the opportunity to find in sobriety. So whatever your ailment is that pushes you towards that, just remember that though there are a lot of us out there that want to help. Even those of us right here on the Prince Magnum channel, no matter how big or small, we want to help. We want you to find that zest for life. On top of that, on top of that, let's see. Right now, that's as far as we've got. Be sure to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Be sure to hit that bell icon. You'll be notified every time we upload a video or that we go live. To go along with that as well, get out there and work on a project. Don't care what it is. Just do something with yourself. Idle hands and a creative mind just make horrible bedfellows. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet. Do something special for them today. And as always, no matter where you are in life, no matter how far down you are or how high you feel today, if no one out there has told you that they love you, Prince Magnum does. God bless you and have a happy 24. Thank you.